All right, good morning. Notice of the time and place of these committee meetings was publicized by notifying the area news media, by publicizing same in the Omaha World Herald and the Nebraska Press Association, OPPD outlets newsletter, OPPD.com, and social media. By displaying such notice on the first level of OPPD administrative offices and by emailing such notice to each of the district's directors on August 14th, 2026. A copy of the proposed agenda for this meeting has been maintained on a current basis and is readily available for public inspection in the office of the district's corporate secretary. Additionally, a copy of the Open Meetings Act is available for inspection on OPPD.com and in this meeting room. Thank you all for joining us. As a reminder to those joining us on WebEx, please mute your microphones to reduce background noise. To members of the public, thank you for attending. You're in listen only mode. If you have any technology questions, please use the chat feature in WebEx to communicate with the event host. Our agenda for today's meeting is as follows. We'll conduct a closed session this morning to discuss one topic, strategic risk, capacity, and project execution. We'll conclude this morning's closed session no later than 9:50 a.m. in order to open the WebEx meeting to allow the public and OPPD staff to join. We'll begin public session at approximately 10 a.m. and receive reports from each committee. Director Bogner, do we have a motion to go into closed session?
We do. I move that the board go into closed session at this time, 8:48 a.m. to discuss one topic, strategic risk, capacity, and project execution. With respect to the strategic risk, capacity, and project execution topic, a closed session is necessary because this discussion will involve competitively sensitive customer information. Requires a second.
Second.
Director Bogner,
Yes.
Director Kavanaugh,
Yes.
Director Ford,
Yes.
Director Howard, virtual, Director Hudson, Director Moody,
Yes.
Director Spurgeon,
Yes.
Director Williams.
Yes. All right, thank you. The motion to go into closed session has passed. This closed session will be limited to one topic, strategic risk, capacity, and project execution. No votes or other board action will be taken. Thank you. A motion and second is required to reconvene in open session.
So moved.
Second.
Director Bogner,
Yes.
Director Kavanaugh.
Yes.
Director Ford,
Yes.
Director Howard, online, Director Hudson is online.
Yes. Let it go.
Director Spurgeon,
Yes.
Director Williams.
Yes.
All right, thank you. The motion to come out of closed session at 10:05 a.m. is carried. This closed session was limited to the discussion of regarding one topic, strategic risk, capacity, and project execution. No votes or other board actions were taken. Notice of the time and place of these committee meetings was publicized by notifying the area news media, by publicizing same in the Omaha World Herald and Nebraska Press Association, OPPD outlets newsletter, OPPD.com, and social media. By displaying such notice on the first level of OPPD administrative offices and by emailing such notice to each of the district's directors on August 14th, 2026. Thank you all for joining us. As a reminder to those on WebEx, please mute your microphones to reduce background noise. To members of the public, thanks for attending. You're in listen only mode. If you have any technology questions, please use the chat feature in WebEx to communicate with the event host. We'll take public comments at the end of today's meeting, as well as at the board meeting on August 20th, 2026, which will be conducted in person at the Omaha Douglas Civic Center, and it'll begin at 5 p.m. The public may attend in person or remotely via WebEx by going to OPPD.com. Joining me today in person are my fellow board members, Amanda Bogner, Mike Kavanaugh, Craig Moody, Mary Spurgeon, and Eric Williams. Sarah Howard and John Hudson are joining via WebEx. We also have members of our executive leadership team, including our VP General Counsel Pete Fisher, Tim Talkin with the Fraser Stryker Law Firm, and OPPD staff. Additionally, we currently have
29.
29 attendees in this meeting, consisting of OPPD employees and members of the public. Thanks. We'll begin with committee reports and a review of work plan items today. Those will be presented by the following directors. Director Spurgeon will report on governance, Director Williams on system management and nuclear oversight, Director Howard on customer and public engagement, and Director Moody will report on finance. Following the committee reports, we'll move into presentations on infrastructure investment, oversight and monitoring, financial stewardship, and governance and board matters. We'll conclude the day with public comments on items of district business. Josh Clark will now give the safety briefing.
Morning, everyone. As we typically do, we'll start off with a quick safety briefing, although this one's going to be slightly different. First and foremost, I want to give everyone my thanks for providing security, your patience, and also your grace while we have implemented some enhanced security improvements for these types of meetings, as well as OPPD as a whole. We really appreciate all the great conversations that we've had, and we want to continue those conversations into the future. We appreciate any types of suggestions or any other help or considerate types of conversations that we can have in the future to make sure that everybody feels safe in these types of meetings, not only for those that are attending today, but any public attendees as well. So thank you very much for us, and we'll continue to do everything we can to make sure that we're safe and secure in all of our meetings. So in the event of any type of evacuation, what I would ask is that you follow myself or another security member out of this back door here for the ELT, as well as the board of directors will get you to a safe location. If it is a fire evacuation, what we're going to do is make our way to the north side of the parking lot in the Great Plains garage area, where we'll have accountability. Anybody else in the room will use these main entrances and go out and follow the direction of the security staff out there. In the event of any severe weather, we had a little bit this morning, but hopefully nothing else. We will do the same thing, but we'll make our way to the front where we'll be directed into the storm shelter on the main level of this floor here. We also want to make sure that everybody's cautious of any suspicious emails or phone calls or anything like that. Don't answer things that you don't know that it's coming in, and always be quick to hit that fish alert button for those of us in OPPD. And then finally, we want to make sure that all of these meetings are psychologically safe. These are a safe environment. We encourage constructive criticism and constructive conversations. We want to hear people curious and wanting to involve themselves in the conversation. So please make sure that we make these meetings open to everyone and make them feel safe as they're doing so. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to you. And again, thank you very much for all of your assistance while we enhance our security.
All right, thank you. We'll start with Director Spurgeon.
Thank you, Chair Core. The governance pre-committee meeting was held on Tuesday, August 11th at 8 a.m. Following the safety briefing and review of 3 action items from the committee's prior meeting that were completed, I introduced item 3, CEO evaluation reporting process. Fellow board members, this item was placed on the agenda at my request. At the June Governance Committee meeting, during the discussion of the CEO compensation, Director Moody requested that additional information, what I understood to be averages of the separate sections, be made available to him. Following the meeting, I sent an email to the human capital staff and told them not to worry about that directive, that I felt they had done enough in conveying the results of the evaluation to board members and that their job was done. During the June All Committees meeting, held virtually, during the discussion on the same topic, Director Moody again requested those numbers, and I responded with my figures of those averages. Sometime after the June board meeting, I sent an email to Director Moody telling him what I had told the staff and that the averages of the numbers given to him were done by me. Director Moody emailed a response. In his response, it was clear that he was not happy with me. He expressed that he felt I had backhanded him, that he had asked for what he had asked for was essential for him in helping him to know how he should decide what level of merit increase he should advocate for. That the process for reporting the results of the CEO evaluation was flawed, and it was my responsibility as chair of the governance committee to correct the process. I have accepted that responsibility. I have apologized to Director Moody and the other members of the governance committee, and I apologize now to you, Director Bachner, and to you, Director Kavanaugh, and to our virtual associates, Director Hudson and Director Howard. I am very sorry for any difficulties my decision may have caused each of you in the consideration of the CEO's evaluation. With the intention of having an internal process document to clearly guide the next chair of the governance committee, I prepared a draft of an internal process document around the process of the CEO evaluation, and I shared the parts with the changes with the governance committee. I didn't share it in full, but the discussion that followed that lent some clarity about the information that was requested. At the end of the discussion, the committee requested that I bring the full document back to the governance committee for the committee's review, and I will do so. I anticipate that in September meeting. Item 4, governance and board policy review pilot. I took a few minutes to review with the committee the 2 methods of executing the policy reviews that have been tried with this pilot process. First, reviewing an entire governance document in open session at all committees meetings, which was done at a couple of monthly meetings at the end of 2025. That method, being far from universally adored and valued, prompted a change in 2026. So this year, specific governance and board linkage policies were assigned to standing committees based on the relevance they had for each standing committee's focus and purpose. Borrowing the practice of using guided questions for discussion, thank you to you, Director Bogner, I think. When each policy was presented to the committee, each member was asked to respond to 2 questions, and those questions may be seen under item 6 of this agenda. If the answer to the second question was yes, that was noted, and more specific information about the concerns was requested. All standing committee chairs were requested to send me the names of the policies that their members had suggested as needing review or revision. That information was forwarded to our governance vice president, Scott Foch, and I expect we may see something about that in the upcoming board workshop. Item 5, GP10, board training and orientation. This governance policy has eluded being addressed for the better part of 6 years. Director Moody this spring accepted the challenge of getting this GP moving, and in April sent me an email and copied Vice President Foch and CEO Fernandez, which contained an analysis of the problem and a suggested framework for addressing what this GP requires. May and June meetings contained more urgent items for this committee's agenda, and we did not meet in July. So this month, I shared Director Moody's proposal with the full committee. A significant and fruitful discussion followed regarding how significant gaps in board knowledge might first be discovered and then be addressed. This topic will continue to be pursued. Item 6, governance and board policy review. The 3 policies listed were up for review. BL4, corporate secretary relationship. Vice President Foch briefly addressed this, noting that this is a challenging one for us to deal with because no fewer than 3 people are ultimately responsible for carrying out the variety of duties described in this board linkage policy. So it continues to be worked on. GP5, election of board officers. Nothing was flagged by committee members for revision. The committee is aware that the departure of 3 experienced board members at the end of 2026 and the arrival of 3 new board members makes selection of the new team very important. GP10, board orientation and training. Having been a point of discussion earlier, we passed over this GP for the questions. Item 7, to Vice President Wheeler's question of whether any ethics-related allegations had been reported to me or investigated, my response was no. Item 8, VP Foch, we left him very little time, which was quite unfair, but he gave us a very swift verbal outline of what we might expect at the board workshop coming up at the end of the month. A very quick look was given to the governance committee planning calendar and board work plan. Following a summary of action items from this meeting, the meeting was adjourned at 4 minutes past the hour. Fellow governance committee members here, have you any corrections or additions to this report? Seeing none, hearing none, this completes my report. Thank you, Chair Moore.
Thank you. On to Director Williams.
Thank you very much. The Systems Management and Nuclear Oversight Committee met on August 3rd. I didn't have alphabet cereal for breakfast, but I would encourage everyone to hold on. We are in for a mix of letters and acronyms through this discussion. I want to start by saying there will be an AMI update later today, Advanced Metering Infrastructure. And I mention that because that is relevant to a number of the other topics that we talked about in the committee. From the agenda, safety, prior month policy discussions, our policy work was generally following on the guidance from the governance committee. So we talked about specific policies there, but no substantial changes were highlighted. Next, plug-in solar. Distributed energy resources are referred to at OPPD as customer-owned generation. And on the COG page, we have a frequently asked questions section, FAQ, and that now includes information about plug-in photovoltaic, PIPV. So if people have questions about plug-in or balcony solar, there is information on OPPD's website now to answer those questions. And there is additional discussion between both systems on the technical side and finance and customer and public engagement about engagements on plug-in solar. So DER, COG, FAQ, PIPV. Great. Next, ISP. Integrated Systems Plan. The next workshop will be on September 22nd. So members of the public who are interested in information can sign up for that now. That is on our Community Connect page. The Systems Committee discussed some information related to the way in which our integrated systems plan work is continuing. And we will also do that again in September prior to the public workshop as we prepare for the preliminary results that are anticipated in workshop 3, and then getting toward the final results of the ISP at workshop 4 and at the end of the year for the entire board and public to see the information then. Next, North Omaha Station, specifically Resolution 6744 from December 2025. We talked about the timeline, the schedule risks, and the upcoming milestones toward the refuel and retirement that has been discussed by the board in the past and was reaffirmed through that resolution. Specifically with our acronyms, we also talked about distributed capacity procurement, DCP, which again is related to distributed energy resources, DER, and the way in which the district staff is working to fulfill that section of the resolution and have a program ready for consideration by the board and available for public presentation on an appropriate schedule. So we'll hear more information about the DCP portion of that resolution toward the end of this year and going into next year. There's another section of Resolution 6744 related to public engagements and environmental considerations, and Director Moody has been engaging with the Douglas County Health Department about the way that that will move forward. No specific updates about that portion of the resolution at this time, other than discussions with relevant stakeholders in the public are continuing. Next, TOU, time of use, also known as TVR, time varying rate. We are taking steps toward developing advanced rates for our all of our customers. And I'm going to leave Director Moody an opportunity to discuss this in more detail because the Finance Committee oversees the backgrounds on rates. And so time of use, TOU, more updates from Director Moody. The Systems Committee also discussed generation reliability. This relates to the metrics in SD4, which are presented in the monitoring report each year. So SAIDI and SAFE, those are your acronyms for this one. There are additional internal metrics that identify the difference between generation reliability in the availability of the resources, the way that we operate them, and customer reliability in the way that our customers experience service from OPPD. And the discussion in systems highlighted that we have specifically outlined new metrics, new ways to understand the generation reliability and the operations at OPPD, and the way that those metrics have led to policy changes internally, and that is leading to significantly improved results in generation reliability within our operations. So appreciation to staff for both identifying we needed more information, translating that information into updated policies, and then the way that those policies are having positive impacts on the organization broadly. So thanks very much to Troy and everybody who on your team has led that effort. Great to hear that update, and we will continue to hear updates about both generation reliability and customer experience reliability through SD4 when we get that monitoring report each year. And then following on the governance items, we had some additional discussion about future policy work through the Systems Committee, most specifically SD7, which has metrics and is anticipated to have a monitoring report presented later this fall. We are aware that there is a change in alignment based on past board action, specifically, again, Resolution 6744. So we anticipate discussion about SD7 during the board governance workshop at the end of August, and then during the presentation when that monitoring report comes up this fall, and then appropriate steps to make sure that the language in the policy is aligned with the other guidance that the board has provided for the organization going forward. And so there are 2 or 3 opportunities where we will discuss specifically the SD7 policy language. And I just want to assure colleagues that we are aware that there is somewhat of a mismatch between different types of guidance that the board has provided to staff. And we want to make sure those are aligned going forward based on the most relevant information, which will be coming out over the next couple of months. So that summarizes everything we talked about in the Systems Committee. Do any committee members have any additional information they wanted to share? Anything I missed? Any questions? No?
Any more acronyms?
If you want some more, I'm sure I can dig some up, but a lot of letters there. All right, great. Thanks very much, Chair Core. Back to you.
All right, thank you. Director Howard.
Thank you, Director Core, and I'll be significantly, I'll offer more brevity than some of my colleagues. On August 10th, the CPE committee met. We went over a products and services update, an AMI update, and a 1010 LB 1010 implementation update. We do have our board work plan item around SD11 modifications that we discussed very briefly. And that was our meeting. If you have any curiosity about what we discussed more in depth, the slides are available in Diligent.
All right, great, thank you. Director Moody?
Thank you, Director Core. The Finance Committee met on August 7th. It was a 2-hour meeting. We're planning 2-hour meetings for the remainder of the year. We're very busy with a lot coming at us right now. And there's some really important stuff in here that is not on our agenda today, but that's coming down the pipeline. So I do want to actually take a little bit of time and hit some highlights here. I'm going to start with, let's see, grants updates. That was quick. There was a summary of awarded grants, pending grants, and other grant related activity. Fairly standard fare for us, so no big deal. The second quarter financial report, the committee, due to time constraints, we did not schedule time to do the deep dive that we typically do. So we'll get that today as an all committee. So everybody will get that at the same time. And then similarly, the second quarter retirement fund report is coming today as well. So with respect to some of these deeper dives that I do want to do today, with respect to number 6, commercial and industrial monthly service charge update. Evaluating the C&I monthly service charge was flagged as a need in fall of 2025 and was included on the 2026 rates work plan. And so we gotta look at what some of the work that the team had done. They, for the committee, summarized the history and reviewed the results of a bill impact analysis, which included a survey of 10 peer utilities. Any update that would be made to the service charge would be revenue neutral to OPPD. But a few key findings from the team and their work. First, the bill impact analysis found that there would be material impacts and potentially significant increases to a large number of customers by making any change. And meanwhile, we've got 2 other C&I rate design changes that are in flight, taking effect in January of 26. So that was obviously already in effect, but we've got another one taking effect in January of next year. And so ultimately, the team brought forward a Brattle Group reviewed recommendation to take no action, and the Finance Committee agreed. I'm going to pause on each of these just to see if committee members, you've got anything else to add or if we've got any questions. Okay. Item number 7, the rate 226 at irrigation rate. So a little bit of context here. In 2025, this rate served 635 customers. There were 226 on the rate. Prompted by a Brattle Group recommendation, that the rates team reviewed the rate structure, specifically looking at eliminating the distinction between single and 3-phase service and refreshing other aspects of the rate design. Again, key takeaways from that team's work. Over the next 4 years, we're going to really lean into gradualism here and move towards a single horsepower charge, which is effectively the fixed portion of the bill, and explore potential for interruptible time of use rates. So back to Eric's point about AMI, enabling some great options here. The team will be pursuing some customer feedback primarily, and also doing some peer research, which is actually really already complete, but the feedback from customers is scheduled for 2028 with final rate design to take effect sometime in 2029, 2030. So back to the gradualized modification of essentially the fixed charge. We will see this as showing up in the 2027 COP. So that is an indication for you as board members that that is one of many things that we will start to see show up in some of the COP rate actions that we've got coming. Pausing for questions and clarity. And again, Brad, hop in here if I'm getting anything wrong.
Nothing to add, sir. Thank you.
So, sorry, Greg, the
Yep.
fixed charge work you described there, that is specific to rate 226, or that is
Yes.
broad across multiple different
Just
rates?
that rate.
Just 226 fixed
Yep.
charge, okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Good question. Thank you, Eric. Okay, so let's talk about where the meat of the meeting occurred, time of use residential rates pilot. Thanks, Director Williams, for the tee up here. I've got a few things that I want to offer. And as was pointed out, all board members got this in either SMNO or in finance. So this is in some ways partly an update for alignment for the board, but also for the public. As has been noted with the adoption of AMI, we're going to have a slew of new opportunities to adjust rates that give our customers greater ability to lower their bills by engaging in certain usage behaviors. And for OPPD, as a company, we also stand to benefit by lowering the system peak and improving resource adequacy requirements, which should also have some decreased upward pressure on rates. The district is presently nearing the timeline for a pilot that would inform adoption of a time of use rate in 2029. That's current schedule. So the elements of that time of use pilot that are under consideration are as follows: whether it's voluntary or involuntary for customers, the significance of the price signal, and whether that would be on peak, off peak, and consideration of super off peak timelines, and also the time period. So during what portion of the day, which weeks or would this new rate structure take effect? So lots to consider. The team has been digging into this. We've been having conversations about this for quite some time. And so the team is really nearing a place where there's quite a bit of clarity around what some of the elements of this new pilot, which will lead to the new rate structure in 2029, what it might be. Brattle Group has been engaged, peer research has been completed, scenarios are being run. And there was a recommendation that was presented to finance and SMNO, not a super formal, but it was seeking input questions. And my impression, at least in the finance committee meeting, was that there was pretty good alignment between the team's recommendation and the finance committee's comfort level with the direction that they're headed. So with respect to next steps, as I said, all board members have seen this in committee meetings. I'm going to take the lead as finance chair and be reaching out to every board member to have individual conversations just to see if there's anything that you're curious about. So really trying to sync that up and bring that back to the finance committee. And I don't know if we're planning to take this to SMNO as well in September, but certainly the finance committee will take the lead on that. So seeking to ascertain in September if there's anything that is still scratchy that we need to address. And we would expect that the pilot will be presented at the all committee meeting in September, and that would likely start the 30-ish day comment period for the public, with an expectation that in October, we will see what comments we've heard from the public. And that's kind of our typical process where we're sort of at the fork in the road and we say, are we good? Do we take this to a vote? Or does this need to go back for further work? And so that we're expecting that in October, which means at the fastest, we would sort of, if the comments don't send us in a different direction, we should be poised to approve that in October. There forward, from October forward, recruitment will begin for participants in the pilot. And then from January to April, give or take, that's when the pilot would start. So again, this is teeing up a pilot that would inform what we would expect the rate structure to be come 2029. At the risk of stating the obvious, I think the team is really working towards a scenario where we would anticipate that whatever rate design we test in the pilot is going to be pretty darn close to what we're going to execute on in 2029. Pausing for comments, questions. Brad, again, hop in if there's anything that I missed that's really important.
Nothing technical, sir. I just say it's a long time coming. A lot of folks excited about this, so appreciate you profiling it.
Okay.
We should run a contest to see who's going to be application number one.
That'd be good.
I'll be two then.
What you're asking.
Okay, and then lastly, I do want to touch on item number 9 really quick. As everyone knows, we are doing a great deal of building in this district right now. That's both generation, but also transmission. So a lot of capital needs for the company. Director Core and I got kind of a quick view of this about a month ago, and we both agreed that this is vital information that the rest of the board needs to see. So it did come to Finance Committee, and it's going to show up in some of our COP discussions as well. Naturally, the capital plan is going to flow into those discussions, but this is one of those examples I think in our view where like more time and more space for the board to digest this is going to be really valuable because it's so significant. The committee did get a look. So what happened in the meeting, an overview of the 10-year capital portfolio. So that's out to 2035, examining different scenarios and their potential impact on rates. As I've said, the need for new generation has increased due to growing load projections, and there is potential for spending sooner than planned. So some of the stuff is starting to slide left on that schedule. The district is endeavoring to move as fast as it can to build what it needs. Potential impacts to non-generation and non-T&D projects. So in other words, I think the broad characterization that I would make there is the view that it's very important to make sure that we're investing the right amounts of capital in new generation, new transmission. That will make it more difficult to invest in capital that is, I'll call internal to the company. So new buildings, new service centers, those kinds of things. So there's a lot of pressure here, and at the risk of stating the obvious, there's a lot of upward pressure on debt service, debt ratio, and thus rates. So no decisions. This is a really good broad characterization of some of the capital planning that's going on, multiple different scenarios. Again, this is all going to flow into the 2027 COP, which is when the full board will finish. Final pause for questions on that one before I wrap up.
No, I would just double down on that, on the attention to capital. I mean, this is the most capital intensive sector of the economy in the United States. And on top of that, we are going through an incredibly intensive growth decade, I would say, or plus decade. So I think the attention that you're bringing to the capital plan is very, very important. We're growing for different reasons. Load is coming. We have new customers coming. We have to invest to serve the existing customers we have because conditions are getting harder to meet. And we're replacing old assets, something that no one at OPPD has had to do really as a generation of employees. And then we're also paving our way to a net zero carbon by 2050, which also requires us to build different types of assets. So from very different places that are coming in, it doesn't really matter. We're really, I don't see any other path other than deploying significant amounts of capital.
Yep.
And while we're doing that, you talked about replacement. We are trying to co-optimize the growth assets, and I'm thinking transmission specifically, with the replacement at the same time to try to optimize that. So those things come together nicely in some cases, and things we've been talking about doing for a few years now just line up with, hey, we need more capacity on this section too. So yeah, good activities.
Okay, board members, as mentioned, you'll see more of this when we get into 2027 COP. Wrapping up board work plan, we don't have anything. We wrapped up SD2 work, and so there's nothing sitting there waiting for the Finance Committee, which feels great because we got plenty of work in front of us anyway. And then we got a quick summary of meetings. So that's the 2-hour show. Lots more coming in the remainder of the third and then in the fourth quarter with COP. Okay, thank you, Chair Clark.
Thank you. Mr. Vi for new generation and transmission update, please.
Yeah, we have some people here to kind of talk about this. I think Danny's our first one up, Senior Director of Major Projects. Had some meaningful progress so far, lots of things in motion. So he'll share some things there. One thing I'd like to highlight is, we have some pretty complex and massive projects going on right now. The partnership that we have with Kiewit and Burns and McDonald has just been wonderful. Not without challenge. This is a very difficult time to build new things, but it's truly a partnership. We work together really well. And I want to highlight that because I think that with projects this big, sometimes it can be difficult, but the teams are working together in just a phenomenal way. So I'll try to review that.
Yeah, thank you very much, Troy. Again, as Troy mentioned, Danny, Senior Director of Major Projects, and it's my privilege to be able to express, my progress and showcase some of the work that we're doing here on the generation and transmission side of our major projects. So, Aaron, if you would please go to the next slide. On the Cass County stage, you see this updated reporter. We're bringing you kind of these updates, and as we're progressing through the site. Cass County itself is really made up of two distinct projects. If I haven't been as clear in the past, we're starting to see that distinction a little bit more readily right now as we're getting into the fall 2026 timeframes. The two projects are really the new generation that we're adding, units 3, 4, and 5. We call it Cass County New Gen. The other distinct project is really the adding the fuel oil capability to the existing units that are on site, Cass County 1 and 2. Overall, some of the assets that you see on screen, some of the activities that are taking place really support both projects. Seeing some good progress. The site changes a lot, and there's a substantial amount of work that's happening on a daily basis out there on site. A few key activities completed over this last quarter. We're seeing a lot of completion of fuel oil tanks. We're starting to see the first deliveries of some fuel to the site to start commissioning activities of Cass County dual fuel. We saw the first of the 3 new gen foundations complete. So it's a pretty huge milestone on the project to see that type of a pour and that kind of an infrastructure installation to support that future delivery of those Siemens units. A lot of lessons learned from the Turtle Creek work that has been done on that foundation, and those same crews moved from the Turtle Creek site to the Cass County site, brought those lessons learned with them. We probably saw a 2-week acceleration of that foundation completion just because of the knowledge that they gained on a previous site. Mobilization of our contractor for the substation activity is going to take place in October, and that's some key coordination that we're dealing with on site, the security, the access, the site coordination, just from a physical arrangement standpoint, who's in what space at what time is becoming critical to a lot of the planning that these teams are doing on site. So those crews, when they show up, they'll probably push the site capacity to over 500 employees or 500 total craft and leadership personnel on site. And when you kind of take a look at all the busyness that's taken place there, you can kind of see that takes a lot to coordinate amongst all those different workers. A few key wins, dual fuel conversion schedules, few key wins and risks. Although the overall project itself is showing a green status, budget and those sorts of things are really kind of in a green state. You do see a little bit of a challenge with our schedule. We're showing a yellow on the schedule, and I probably talked about this about every update we've provided, that we're seeing a lot of challenge in the market. There's a lot of demand for the types of craft and resources that we're using on this project. So Kiewit, in the early stages of the project, had a hard time finding the pipe fitters that we needed. They've had to make a lot of accommodations, try to bring them on site. Every time we have a delay in getting those resources on site starts to impact that schedule slightly. And what you see is a kind of a compounding effect as we're now into the electrical work that's happening on site. Run into a few issues with some late material arrivals. We're still seeing some challenges getting the full contingent of electricians that we need on site. But Kiewit's kind of to Troy's credit, in his comments around Kiewit and the partnership they're showing, they're really kind of pulling out all the stops, making sure that, they're working really closely with the local unions. They're pulling in supplemental labor when needed, reaching out to specialty firms to shift off work as needed to be able to get the types of resources we need on site. That dual fuel project, we're really targeting an end of the year completion, and that's we're really monitoring it over the next couple of months as we get into the first outages on dual fuel. We'll have a lot more granular schedule to coordinate very closely between Kiewit and Siemens, and we'll get better indicators as to how much that overall schedule might slip past the end of the year.
Hey, Danny, I talked to colleague CEOs from all over the country, and we used to, maybe a year ago, most of the conversations around project execution was centered on supply chain of components and equipment. And while that hasn't necessarily gone away, I've sensed a significant shift in the conversation that now is more about labor. You touched on that a little bit. What concerns do you have, especially as we go into the winter seasons? This is going to be our first winter season with this massive number of workers on site. Any concerns about that and availability and people coming back to the site to work in January?
Can I?
Yeah, absolutely.
Something, most of the workers from the Midwest.
That's great.
So they understand what cold is. And I think that's an important point as we think about it. business. And, I think Kiewit's been pretty good at getting new folks in, changing work schedules. Like we've gone to 24 hours on some of the work, and they brought in additional oversight. So I think there's some activities there, as well as maybe the configuration of the staffing here that might have been different than maybe what you were thinking.
Lesson learned.
Troy nailed it. It is a routine question that we're asking of Kiewit. Hey, what are we really worried about in these winter transitions? And having that familiarity of working in the Midwest, a Kiewit being an Omaha-based company, they kind of know what to expect with the labor studies they do in the region and what types of turnovers that they're going to expect. Right now, they're not expecting a lot of challenge. I think where we might see some issues is the continued pressure and demand in the industry. Right, there's a lot of other utilities doing what we're doing. There's a lot of other industries that are in rapid expansion right now. To think, the data centers and other commercial growth, they're all needing those same electrician skill sets. And so the market has become extremely competitive, and it's becoming very difficult when you start to see certain companies offer like incentive bonuses to leadership, electrician superintendents, seeing a $1,200 a week premium to just stay on site. Those are some pretty substantial challenges, and really kind of put pressure on the demand for these resources across the industry. So Kiewit's doing everything they can to help manage those kinds of issues. Don't think the winter time is necessarily going to affect it, but definitely the pressure and the long hours and those sorts of things might require a little bit of a break around the holidays for sure. Give those folks some time to recoup, recover. All right, if we want to jump to the next slide, please, Ms. Lane. Turtle Creek. So one generator, one turbine that's going to be installed on this site. Both of those units are in place, the generator and turbine. Right now, the Kiewit team has been working on final alignment, which is a very delicate and precise activities to make sure that the balancing in the configuration of those two different components are lined up exactly right. We're talking tolerances of less than 0.02 of an inch that we're trying to accomplish as we set anchor bolts and adjust and get those turbines in perfect alignment. We've got a lot of activities that are changing the scenery at the site. You see tanks coming up out of the ground. You see buildings like our maintenance and fuel oil buildings that are coming up out of the ground. The picture on the left is showing the air inlet steel. A lot of crane work activity, and as you might suspect, we're some of the safety protocols on site change accordingly, right? We start to see a lot more working from heights. We see a lot more of the dropped object and those other kinds of protocols as we see this kind of vertical construction. So definitely a great focus by Kiewit on that. Some key wins in this case is kind of the opposite of what I just mentioned about the foundation. In this case, the tank contractor that built the tanks at Cass County is now moved into the Turtle Creek site. And we see a lot of lessons learned and really expedited construction happening on those tanks, and some coming up out of the ground very quick. And on-site crews continue to relay that it's impressive how fast that they can get some of these tanks really installed and commissioned, ready to go. We've had just a few issues on site, a couple of things dealing with product quality coming from some of the sub-suppliers on the Siemens side for the air filter inlet hoods showing signs of corrosion. We see some stack sections that aren't fitting up exactly as they should. To the comments again that Troy mentioned earlier, what we see is Siemens and Kiewit working together very strongly in this space to both ask the right questions of the supplier as to how to correct some of these issues, as well as really taking ownership to keep the schedule moving on the Kiewit side by taking those lessons from Siemens and getting them applied as to how they finalize the fitment of those devices. So I think we've got 2 stack rings set already and be coming up out of the ground or coming up much higher here in the next couple of weeks. One of the key things that we really need to keep an eye out for on this side is really making sure that we're vacating the substation switch yard. Right now it's being used, it's a laydown space to be able to support the overall assembly of the turbine parts. We need to start our substation construction. We got other projects that are right behind this generation project, and we need to keep pace with that. Again, to Kiewit's credit, they're working with us as much as they can to relocate all their lay down product and stuff to different areas of the site, and really supporting us in our needs to stay on schedule with that. I mentioned it last time I was up here. The budget is still showing yellow, and this is due to tariff impacts as well as some variable transportation costs coming from the turbine supplier. Those couple of things have increased our overall budget. We're just going to keep this yellow throughout the project because it's really kind of indicating a change of our original plan. So we're showing 43% complete overall. That number is really closer to 48%. In fact, we got final notice from Kiewit that as of August, we're going to be in the 50% complete. So it's a milestone payment or a milestone criteria in our contract, dealing with our retention and some of those sorts of things. So hitting a key milestone there is a great win for the project, considering at one point last year we were looking at a couple of months behind and really now back on track as a whole. Any questions on this slide before I move on? Okay, very good. Ms. Lane, if we jump to the transmission and substation slide, we got three main projects that are under construction right now. Cass to Sarpy, progressing on schedule. Some of the big activities right now is really getting the foundation structures and wire pulls happening at the Cass County end of this transmission line. So again, a lot of coordination on site to be able to orchestrate all these contractors together. The North Douglas County transmission line is made up of three segments. Segment one's complete and energized. That happened a little bit ahead of schedule. And so we're always thankful for those types of things when they happen. Everything fell into place very well. Segment two, we're actually doing the distribution relocations right now with transmission construction to follow here in the coming months. Segment three is the segment that's under construction. So if you're driving down I-680 and you see happening, if you're taking down old lattice steel, and starting to put up the new transmission along that I-680 corridor. That's what this project is really all about. Troy touched on it a little bit earlier as he talked about how we're trying to marry up the capital growth projects with some of the, let's say, aging infrastructure type projects that we have. This was a great example. Some of this transmission lattice has been in service since the 70s. It's really kind of reaching end of useful life. We're taking this opportunity as we rebuild these circuits for increased capacity to also replace that aged infrastructure, and so getting some multiple benefits on that. One substation I'm going to mention, the Gretna substation is now under construction. This is located very near Valles, so there's going to be a lot more intentional coordination happening with that critical customer. They get very busy and they're very active during the fall timeframe, obviously. And so we want to make sure their construction activities, concrete deliveries and heavy hauls and things like that don't interfere with their daily operations. So our teams are working very closely on those. Overall, these couple of projects, maybe the one thing I'll mention on the North Douglas County transmission project, saw probably one of the biggest structures and biggest foundations we've seen in our history. We talked a little bit about the Cass to Sarpy. I probably mentioned that the river crossing is pretty substantial structure, 107-foot deep pier foundation, or excuse me, pile foundations. In this case, probably our largest pier foundations, looking at 14-foot diameter, 67 feet deep. It's 400 cubic yards of concrete and one big foundation to support one of these structures. So we're doing very big things, set new records for OPPD in the size and scale of the infrastructure we're installing. Engineering teams and support staff are doing a fantastic job with this size and scale. So,
and if I may just quickly to connect the dots here, we just recently in July, and I'm going to talk about this at the board meeting on Thursday, the peaks that we've established. Very clearly, we saw this big pricing differential between the north of the metro area and south. And so these Cass to Sarpy transmission line, the Sarpy to Gretna line we energized a few years ago, the Gretna substation, eventually the Cass to Nebraska City line, those are incredibly important for many reasons, but part of it is we've talked about Turtle Creek Station, Cass County Station expansions. We have Nebraska City Station. A very significant part of our generation fleet sits south of the metro. North of the metro, we have Standing Bear Lake Station and still North Omaha Station. So again, the building high voltage, long distance transmission infrastructure south of the metro is incredibly important for a number of reasons. And I think it's music to my ears when I see the progress that we're making on advancing all of these, because it'll be incredibly important for us to continue to integrate all this generation that we're building out.
Our operations folks who are monitoring and operating the grid are very thankful too for additional tools and capacity within the metropolitan area as we grow.
Correct. And then if I would be remiss if I didn't talk, well, we're gonna talk about renewables later on, but the importance of also being able to build more generation down south in Sarpy, Odo, Cass County for solar batteries will be very, very important. And this will be unlocking a lot of that opportunity as well.
So regarding transmission, the discussion we just had is about connections between our facilities. Do we have any comments about other transmission connections? I know we've talked about it at other times, but connections across the river, north, south, west. Is there any specific comment about how, how that's going?
Okay, yeah,
I think
Any of
generally,
them.
generally speaking, the planning groups, the Southwest Power Pool, MISO, which is across the river, look at options to better connect. Now, there is some limitations when you go from MISO to SPP that's being discussed, but yeah, there's plenty of discussions going on.
But within SPP, I think the other piece, clearly it's not just in our territory. I think our ability to interconnect Cass County Station in the future and get full accreditation is still being studied in SPP, and there's very likely more transmission that may be needed outside of our service territory.
Yeah.
So again, just this is a regional effort. We need to collaborate and pay attention to what's happening in other places of the footprint because it affects us.
The JTIQ, which I think you're familiar with, it's that big north-south line that will go in several years from now.
North-south line across along the Missouri.
Along the Missouri River. That one will open up a lot, right? That'll make a lot of changes in power flows for us and allow a lot more capacity to flow in and out of the metropolitan area. But that's several years off still.
So some portions of that are outside of our control, but are the steps necessary to have us in a position to deliver, well, for that to be delivered as anticipated, 2030, 2032, something like that? Are the things happening necessary to see those projects between service territories, are those things moving forward?
They're moving forward. I think we have all the authorization I need from the board. What you've done so far is exactly what we need to do. But your point is right. We depend on other utilities, other states, other jurisdictions too. Sorry, Friday.
No, that's a good summary. I think we're still working through like component acquisition issues. There's grant issues. So we just continue to navigate issues related to projects of that size and nature.
But the board, you all allowed us to be able to go out and negotiate and pull together contracts for steel, things of that nature, which readily helps us to execute in a much better spot than we would be otherwise. So there have been steps taken. It's just we're early in the process for those. We've got a lot of other stuff which Danny's highlighting here, and we've been highlighting during these committee meetings of late. We've got a lot of other transmission that's going on too that help kind of open up things for us as a grid, from a grid standpoint.
And can you remind us, there were specific actions taken by the board that have enabled some of this faster work? Which specific actions did we take in the past that have facilitated moving quickly? Because I want us to remember, we talked about it a lot. There's specific things we have taken. There we go. It's on the top of the next slide. Great.
Thank you, Director.
Remind us.
Great tee up. It's OPPD's commitment to the board that as soon as we were kind of given authority to use this engineer certification back in May of 2025, to come back on a quarterly basis and give you kind of any updates on how we're using it, how effective it is. You can kind of see just some key numbers there. 3 contracts awarded underneath that task of the transmission contract alliance. A total of $22 million in total spend. We got 7 more upcoming RFPs, 2 more upcoming direct awards. It's our ability to work more closely with these contractors in the mode of RFP development that's allowing us a lot of benefits in how we execute this work. So a couple of examples we have on the screen: direct communications with bidders to validate proposal assumptions. Really, one of the challenges that we used to have in a sealed bid approach to these types of projects is you would see like maybe an outlier bid that was extremely low. With the methods and requirements for us in a sealed bid environment, we don't exactly have the ability to ask the vendors exactly what is driving that maybe anomaly. And you kind of have to make some assumptions or ask some generic questions of all bidders to try to validate, hey, is that bid real? What we were able to do kind of with the engineer cert and that complementary resolution was be able to talk more directly with that low bidder, find out, hey, how did you assemble your bid? What are your assumptions for concrete availability, for labor availability? We were able to validate a lot of things And when you see a proposal that has maybe a low bid differentiator of $10 million, there's probably a real benefit to this engineer cert that you could measure in that way, you know, saying like, if we didn't have enough clear information on that low bidder, in the old way of sealed bid, we would have maybe done the less risky solution and go to a next higher bid. But in this case, we were able to kind of validate a lot of those things and be able to award in that way. Some of the other great benefits that we get out of that is being able to get some constant feedback loops from the vendors after every RFP, really assessing whether or not our unit pricing structure is adequate, if our mobilization terms, if our contract terms, if things like that are problematic to the vendor. We build in this feedback loop that allows us to improve for the next RFP. So those are a couple of key wins. Still seeing those things show up as we're executing this very valuable right that we were given by the board. And so we take it very seriously and commit to further updates in the future. And with that, I kind of complete the new gen and transmission updates. Any questions?
There's more.
There is more. I will be
And
handing the.
Chair Cora, I'll just acknowledge we allocated 30 minutes and we're already at that time. But going back to Director Moody's point about capital deployment, I think I intentionally made this presentation a little longer because I think it's important for the board and for the public to understand the magnitude and more details about all the investments we're making. So if you'll indulge us with a little bit longer.
Sounds great.
All right, thanks. I'll be passing off to Joe.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Joe Lang, Director of Generation Strategy and Origination. Good to see you all. We'll dive into Burke County here first. We executed this PPA just after the last board meeting. So we did not provide an update on this when we were doing our last quarterly. But so the timing didn't work out just quite perfect there. But so we executed this PPA with Burke County, on Burke County with Sandhills Energy in May of this year, just earlier. And we've been engaging with Sandhills on this project for a number of years. They've been working with the county to advance the project, landowners, et cetera. And so we've kept a close eye with Sandhills on this project, evaluating it, supporting them, you know, certainly where we can. So they have their permits with the county board. They have the OK permits with the Tacoma Airport Authority. They have their generation interconnection with the Southwest Power Pool. So all goods there. And again, in May, we completed negotiations with them and executed our power purchase agreement with them. The project is a 250 megawatt solar project located just east of Tacoma in Burke County. With it being fully permitted, they're already under construction. So they're working on road activities and site prep, et cetera. So things are going well in the field thus far, and we'll continue.
Before you move on, I think just because you have that orange square at the top, I want to pause quickly and remind, I think this is a celebratory moment. When you add all of that nameplate capacity, acknowledging some of these projects are capacity only, others energy, but we have now 2.8 gigawatts of nameplate renewable capacity to our name. 2.8 gigawatts, which again, it hasn't happened by accident. It's been over a decade plus from when we were chatting earlier this morning about wind PPAs that we started engaging with in the early 2010s, and now all the way up to earlier this year. It is enormous. The volume, the leadership that you and your team have shown, I think it's something that is worth noticing, because we typically get into a lot more details about the fuel oil tanks and the engines that are delivered on the projects we own and operate. But I think it's important for us to pause here and celebrate the volume of renewable generation that we've been able to secure on the state. And it's not enough. There's more to come, but I think it's important for us to celebrate that. It now it has always played a big part of our portfolio. Now it plays an even more prominent part of our organization.
Thank you, Javier. I would just maybe say a big piece to that as well is just the creativity that we've applied to the various agreements and structures and customers. And there's so many variables that come into play here that have really helped advance our agreements. All right, we can jump to the next slide, Aaron. K-Junction Solar. So as many likely recall, back in 2023, we purchased K-Junction Solar from EDF, which is a prospective 300 megawatt solar facility. Mr. Hernandez and Director Core, Director Williams really helped a lot with the county in trying to, inform them of what our goals were, objectives, and one of those objectives that we communicated to them was our goal to sell the project to a private developer and ultimately, seek to execute a power purchase agreement with again, a private developer. So in May, we did successfully sell the project to Sandhills, and they'll seek to advance it. Some of the recent timelines, there were some challenges with the York County Board approving restrictive regulations in April, and those regulations from the York County Board kind of put a hindrance on our generation interconnection agreement with the Southwest Power Pool has certain timelines we need to meet in there. And so those timelines weren't matching up well. So we did allow the GIA to expire and then pass the project to Sandhills and sold it to them in that regard. And again, consistent with our big picture, letting them push forward on the development aspects of the project, and then subject to their success at being an opportunity for OPPD to consider a PPA with them if it's competitively, if it's competitive. I think that's it on K-Junction. We can jump to the next slide on Pierce County Energy Center. We've visited the site numerous times. It's things are going very well out there. They're advancing on schedule. They have a pretty neat robot out there that's helping them with their construction activities that they're piloting. They worked with a company out of Canada, and this robot reaches and grabs panels and sets them on top of the rack, and then a couple workers shoot them in, and they just go right down the path. One of the larger kind of safety issues with panels is when they're working out there with the wind and breezes and they're trying to grab those panels and they're lifting high, and so it can result in lower back injuries. And so this really helps minimize those. But it's a really neat device that they're using. Today, I think we've discussed this, but just always kind of trying to keep these things like to Javier's point in the big picture. But today, the largest solar facility in the Southwest Power Pool is 250 megawatts. So it's pretty neat that this is a 420 megawatt facility, notably surpassing what's currently online in the SPP. And then we used a surplus interconnection agreement on the storage. So what the storage is then doing is you've got the 420 megawatts that's interconnected to the grid for the solar, and then the storage is able to utilize a portion of that to ensure we take optimal use of the accredited capacity from the facility. So it's a very, very optimized facility that's being constructed, and we're working with NextEra and Google on in that structure. Panel installation's about 70% complete. When we were putting these slides together, it occurred to me it would be neat to have a drone aerial to show you all what the significance of the project out there. So we'll try to get that for you all next time. That's all I have. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
Last but not least.
Yes, last but not least. Good morning. My name is Mark Pohl. I'm the Programs and Planning Manager for Utility Operations. I have a very brief update to provide you all regarding the North Omaha Station retirement and refueling planning process. In summary, the OPPD team continues to follow the board's directives that are laid out in Resolution 6744. The Southwest Power Pool's retirement study and OPPD's integrated system plan study are running in parallel. Together, they will inform of any potential investments that may be needed in order to enable the retirement of North Omaha Station Units 1, 2, and 3, and the refueling of Units 4 and 5. We expect the results of both of these studies by the end of the year, and we will prepare the board for any procurement decisions that will need to be made quickly after we have those results in order to keep the project on track. Stay tuned. More details will be provided in the coming months, and we will continue to keep the board informed on a regular basis. At that point in time, that's all the comments I have. I'll open the floor to any questions.
Very important, I think, for me to share, and I think for us to acknowledge, as of today, we don't have any major concern about the timeline of the retirement or refueling in the winter of 2028 and 2029. Is that correct?
You mean to execute it?
To execute it by
As long as as long as the Southwest Power Pool and the reliability studies come back okay and doesn't require major additional infrastructure. Yes, we would seek approval after the first of the year for a labor contract to be able to execute the rest of the conversion, which would take place towards the end of 28.
Good, thank you.
So, do we have a timeline on the labor contract? I know that the long lead to make sure we have a contract we deliver on that. We have studies running now, resource or other system upgrade recommendations 27 Q1. Do we know when the labor contract is expected so that we can be long lead time prepared for that?
So the board will get an update on the ISP and the SPP studies, right? And then the board has, I can't remember how many days it is. It's
120 days.
20 days to make a determination. If the determination is, hey, we're good to move forward, then at that 120 days, we would be bringing forward that labor contract approval so that we could start executing. So we're trying to give ourselves enough margin that we feel pretty comfortable, but it's a tough market. It takes a while to get people. So we wouldn't want to wait any longer than probably that 120 days after so Q1 basically, right? So into Q1, we would need to have that secured.
Yeah. So similar timeline to any other generation or transmission resources anticipated from the two studies. Labor contract would also be that Q1, 27.
That's what I was gonna say. I think Q1 of 2027, or in that time frame, we will also likely come back to the board with a resolution for additional generation that comes out of the ISP. So lots of procurement parallel processes. I want to make sure that this is like a priority, right? And it's part of the whole portfolio that Mr. Paul is helping us manage. Make sure that everything we're meeting all the requirements that the board has laid out.
I think the point is, after the first of the year, there's lots of approvals that come really fast, and we're going to have to do the best we can as an organization to help the board be prepared for those, to provide as much insight up front as possible, because those are going to be some pretty large decisions.
On that note, a little bit unrelated, but somewhat related, we will have the departure of 3 experienced board members that will not be here for those approvals. So one of the things that I've talked to a few of you, and we're already planning, is we have 6 candidates for 3 board positions. So we are already starting to think about how do we schedule pre-orientation sessions with the winning candidates shortly after the election. We're starting to put those in their radar. So because again, the ramp is going to be very, very steep. And so to the extent that we can get time with the elected board members before they take office in the November, December timeframe is going to be very, very important. Things are going to get very busy very quick in that first quarter.
Ties back to where GP, whatever the training.
Yeah.
GP10. There it is. Yeah. So like, that's the mobilization of that. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we're on to nuclear oversight.
We have all the fun reports today.
This is a good one.
They're all relatively pretty good.
Good morning, Tim Yelling, Senior Director, Fort Calhoun Station Decommissioning. I have just 2 slides today, and this is the first one. So this drone photo, because I didn't recognize drone photos are important. It's from just a month ago. So this is the current condition of the site. And the other reason I'm putting this up here is to refresh us on what the future version of the site looks like. So all those orange shaped characters are things that are going to stay. It's our used fuel storage area, including the security facility, a couple of metal storage sheds, the substation, and then a very robust concrete structure up by Highway 75. Those stay indefinitely. On the other side of the picture are the items in yellow, which is the training center, and then several concrete and gravel parking lots that surround that training center. So that will stay in place at least until the license is terminated, which we would expect to be about a year from now. And then at that point, from now to then, we'll be looking at what could the options be for use of that facility. If we find a use, we'll remodel appropriately. If we don't find a use, that building could be taken down, and at that time, those parking lots will be taken out as well. There are just a few small projects we'll finish up after the license is terminated as well. There's still a large security fence around the perimeter of where the reactor plant used to be. After the license is terminated, we'll take that down. Our roads are in pretty bad condition after years of running over the big construction equipment. We'll do some improvements there, but by and large, this is what the site will look like. And if we talk about project progress, we can go to the next slide. So we'll talk about the big map, and then we'll talk about the callouts after that. So this gives you a working copy of where we are with on-site radiological surveys. So the yellow is where we still need to conduct those surveys. The green is where surveys are complete. And the ones that are shaded green, not only are the surveys complete, but the lab work is complete, the documentation is submitted, and NRC has approved those areas. The two callouts at the top, the one in the upper right, is where the reactor plant was. So where the reactor plant was and all its support buildings, that area is complete with the surveys. It's just an area outside of it now that was used as a laydown area and a driveway essentially, that we still need to do some surveys there. The other call out is up where the waste processing facility was. So a lot of that area is done, but there's still some more to do basically on the haul road from where that facility was. And then the large area in yellow, kind of in the bottom left-hand corner, that's where that flex building is, that robust concrete structure. We're working in that area right now. I expect that to be done relatively soon. So moving along with those surveys, but they have been a bit more challenging than I expected them to be. And we'll hit on that here in just a little bit. As far as documentation, we've split that up into 6 phases, and we are talking about tens of thousands of pages of documentation. The first 2 phases are submitted and approved by the NRC, so that goes back to those shaded sections. Phases 3 and 4 have been submitted as well, so those are under review. It typically takes about 6 months for the NRC to review the material, ask us whatever questions they have, and for us to respond before we get through a review. Phase 5 is about 60% complete. All of the surveys are done. It's now just putting all that documentation together. And then phase 6 is really in its infancy as far as documentation goes, because we're still doing the surveys that start the process off of documentation. So for the last 2.5 or so years, I've been saying that we would be substantially complete by the end of the 3rd quarter, which is merely a month and a half from now. And substantially complete was always defined as those on-site radiological surveys complete. I'm here to tell you today that I don't believe we're going to achieve that. I believe it's going to be October before those are complete. We still are striving for September. Last time I mentioned there's a couple of risks that we had. One was some unplanned attrition. We've had some of that. One was weather. Well, the extremely hot days and the wet days impact our ability to do surveys as well. But the biggest impact is I think I underestimated the technological complexity of surveying the entire site, making sure that everything is absolutely ready for a release, and we don't want to rush that. So I think we're going to come in about a month late, still striving for the end of September, but I want to be transparent here that that might have slipped a little bit. As far as documentation goes, we would expect that in the January, February timeframe, we would submit phase 6. And then shortly after that, we would submit what's called the licensed amendment request. LAR is the term for it to add to the acronyms, which ultimately puts together the summary of here's all the things we did. Here's how we're leaving the site. We request permission for release of the license. And then that typically would take about 6 months as well for review. So that gets us to about this time next year that we would expect the site, except for where the dry fuel is, to be released for unrestricted use. And we still have open as to what those options would be for use of the site. So if I sum that all up, because this is the last slide, schedule wise, we're going to be close, but perhaps slipped a month in the substantial completion date. Budget wise, we are still on track budget. That's all I have pending. Any questions?
What happens after substantial completion?
After substantial completion is simply, that's underselling, is the completion of all the paperwork. So, all the work out in the field will be done, and there'll be the transition of those contracted employees that are helping us out with that. But there'll still be a dedicated group of individuals putting all that paperwork together, which maybe brings up a great point, is that's very technical work, and there's only a few people in the industry that really know how to do that. So keeping those people on the project and engaged is going to be important to finishing with quality.
No, I assume those are not are those our employees or those?
Our employees have a piece of it, but the real technical experts are through Energy Solutions and then their subcontractors.
Thank you.
Tim, I want to call out your desire for quality, and obviously the nuclear culture comes in shining here, and your project excellence is important. And if we were planning on substantially complete the project by Q3, and if that slips a few weeks or a month, right, I really appreciate the transparency, and at the same time commend you and the team for an outstanding execution of this project.
Yeah.
I mean, again, nuclear on time, on budget, on schedule usually don't go in the same sentence. And you know, you've demonstrated what, frankly, many people, including myself, had some skepticism many years ago. It's like it is doable, and it's because of the leadership that you've provided, your team, and the dedication. It's incredible. So thank you for that. Looking forward to the next report, whether it's September or October. We'll let the board evaluate the timeliness, but I think from my perspective, it's job very, very well done.
Thank you. And it does come back to people. It's taken a huge team of thousands of people from day one until where we are today to get to this point. So certainly commend all those folks.
Thank you for saying that. He was not pleased to have to tell me that it was.
I know him. I know him well. So.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tim.
Thanks, Tim. All right, AMI, please.
All right, I will ask Mr. Matt Hardebeck to give an update today. We've got exciting things going on in the district, not only in the degree to which we're getting additional customers, but also the sort of technology we're applying and the solutions we're bringing to customers. And AMI is one of those, and Matt will give us an update on where we are and what's coming next. We're on the doorstep of some really big, fast-paced things.
We are. Matt Hardebeck, Director of Customer Experience and Operations. I wish I had more graphics like Tim and Danny. They do a pretty good job, don't they? Here, I've got about 5 minutes. I'm going to do my best to run through 7 slides in 5 minutes. I'm always up for a big challenge. I think this one might be that. I'm excited on behalf of a lot of other folks in the room to talk about AMI, and we're right on the cusp of full deployment. We're already seeing some operational value coming out of just the small amount of meters we have. And we know we're right on the cusp of delivering some really big value to our customers over the next 2 years, thinking about outage detection, personalized energy insights, thinking about self-serve options. So quite a bit there. Let's move on to the next slide, Aaron. So these 4 items, there's actually a long list of the kind of tools that we have in our toolbox. So each one of these independently, don't think of them as actually driving to the awareness and the education we have to. Think of them as like a system of things that we utilize as a whole to really drive towards that. These are all built off of what we've learned through the AMI soft launch and also talking with peer utilities who have been working through this as well. So let me dive a little deeper. So on a couple of things, we think about like the social campaigns and the outreach events, it's kind of broad tools, right? We get that message out there. There's a broad awareness that happens. And then more targeted would be like postcards and automated calls where you're driving trust and transparency and confidence in the process. So you try to weave all these things together, all into one system and other items outside of just these 4 listed to ensure that you get that awareness to our customers and you get the education that needed so they can connect with the value that we know AMI will deliver to that. The other thing to note here that's really positive is we took one item, I'm going to kind of highlight it here, from our post survey installation of our soft launch, the automated call. Customers were honestly expecting a tighter window of acknowledgement and communication of when a meter was going to be replaced, right? We're getting so used to other customer expectations that we get from other customer brands where they have a tighter window of communication. So we're going to do that. Within days, maybe up to a week, we're going to give a kind of tighter acknowledgement of when we'll be there to replace that meter. The other thing to note here, as I was doing some rough math this morning, and as I love numbers, I was thinking about the volume at which we're going to have customer communications. We could have up to 2 million customer touch points for the next 2 years. 2 million. That's a lot. The execution coordination across OPPD is critical. We get just a little bit of that wrong, that shows up in other ways or other weird ways within our business. So the teams, a lot of the leaders behind me here, are doing a fantastic job of working together to make sure that that execution of those type of communications is really, really solid. Let's move on to the next slide. So I wanted to show you kind of a timeline, and I'm only going to highlight a few things here. One, I'm going to start with today, August 18th, the outreach event that's happening at the Community Resource Fair in Louisville. So what we've done and what learning we've gotten from our soft launch is we want to be kind of coupling on with our engagements with other existing outreach events. So you see that tonight. We're going to be at that. The Community Resource Fair is for something else, right? Support our community, but also we'll have a presence there with AMI so we can answer any kind of AMI questions. Another thing I want to note here is September 1st. That's when we'll start again with deployment of AMI meters. So though we're only doing about 3,000 this fall, and I'll actually show you kind of where those are in the next slide, we're starting again. It's kind of an exciting deal. Another one I want to notate here was in January, that's January 2nd, the FAN or Field Area Network will be installed. So again, our meters need to have a communication infrastructure in the metro environment to be able to talk and get that information back to us, and for us to be able to talk back to the meters. So that will be completed in that January timeframe of 2027. The last thing I want to note is that orange bar that runs across the way. We are about to start a marathon over the next 2 years. And as I noted earlier, with that 2 million or so contacts, we are going to be on this rinse and repeat with a lot of customer touch points and a lot of key stakeholders across the whole footprint. So that kind of 60-day, 90-day, 30-day automated phone call, postcard, outreach event, webinar, we are doing this over the next 2 years. There is a lot of coordination, and I just wanted to create awareness that that's going to happen for the next couple of years. Okay, let's move on to the next slide. I wanted to talk quickly about where we're going to be the rest of this fall. And the next slide, I'll go into, hey, where we're going to be in the first quarter of next year. So for the rest of this fall, we're doing C&I, commercial industrial meters, irrigation, and current transformers. So think about these are mostly the cellular footprint of our rural environment. So you see us starting kind of in the south rural and moving our way north. This is all going to be done by OPPD staff. So in coordination with our vendor who does all of our residential deployment, we worked out a plan where OPPD staff could get started this fall ahead of some of the other installations that will happen, and we'll work kind of south to north. So this will be a great thing for us to start getting going before full deployment really kicks off in January. So on that note, let's move on to the next slide, where you see us really starting to pick up pace. So where we had 3,000 meters over the fall, this fall right ahead of us, we're doing roughly 22,000 meters a month. So starting in January, that's between our OPPD staff and our vendor partner, Allegiant, who will be all of our residential. You see us starting again in the South Rural and moving north. The exciting thing here to note, and Aaron Smith does a good job of talking about this, is if we fast forward about a year, we'll be done with our rural environments. It's pretty great. Like we'll be fully deployed in that footprint, and then we can move on and tackle the metro. This plan was really developed based on Allegiant's experience, us talking to other utilities, and what we learned from the soft launch to understand let's tackle the rural environments and then kind of co-focus on the metro environments. So there was a lot of intentionality built into what you're seeing on the screen here. Okay, let's move on to the next slide. And I think this is my last one, just again, creating awareness. Aaron and I will be back in the November timeframe again to talk about how deployments are going and give an update on kind of what the first and second quarter will be of next year. So with that, I'll open up any comments or questions.
So we talked earlier in our board meeting about time of use rates, pilot schedule, and when we would expect the effective date of that. rate to come online, which is 2029.
Mhm.
I highlight that only to say, maybe the question is, we're seeing benefits from the deployment of these across the service territory, aside, like rates aside.
Right.
Once installed, we're bringing them online, we're using them to make decisions, be more efficient in our work. I just wanted to make sure we distinguish between those two things. Is that a fair characterization?
Yes, yeah, there's system type, and Aaron can certainly talk to this, that we've seen through the temperature alarms or outage detection, where you'll see an operational value from it. Aside from the customer benefit, where customers have some benefit as well through our new customer portal, where they can go in and see real-time or near real-time customer insights. So there's those pieces outside of the rate piece, which you articulated as being actively worked on.
Okay, cool. That's helpful. And then I had a question. We just wrapped up some reports, new generation, the nuclear update, where we get a kind of a green to yellow budget and schedule, kind of quick snapshot. Could you, it's not included in here, but could you give us kind of a sense for, as we look at this in totality, are we green? Are we yellow from a budget and schedule standpoint?
Aaron, you want to take that one? Aaron's a little closer to some of the budget and schedule, so.
Yeah.
Can you come over here so that public?
Yeah, hey, good morning. Aaron Smith, Director of Distributed Device Strategy and Distribution Planning and the AMI sponsor. So yes, we're green on schedule. We've got the deployments for this year. Those will be beginning in September. And the kind of the rural C&I customers focus on our cellular meters. And then in January, we'll ramp up with our installation vendor, Allegiant, coming online. And so, yeah, we're going to be going at a pretty fast pace. There'll be some months next year where we hit 20,000 meters a month. So it's going to be pretty fast and furious. But yeah, by the end of next year, we anticipate about 250,000 total installs. But yeah, we're on track in terms of schedule. We have had some things up in the air in terms of kind of tariffs that wreak some havoc in terms of kind of budget planning. But outside of that, we're on track budget wise. In terms of what we expect, but there's a little bit of kind of some unknowns in terms of some tariffs and those impact then taxes. And we have seen some inflation too, and consumer price index things that may impact future meter prices. But in general, we're in a good shape with budget with a few kind of unknowns that we're working through.
Okay.
Director, I'm going to take that as an action item, but I think it's a fantastic recommendation. So maybe just for future reports, have that green, yellow, red budget schedule as part of the presentation. That's it.
Include that.
Thanks.
Thank you.
So a meter deployment timeline, C&I irrigation, September, October, November, December. Next slide was starting at the south, moving up January through March. So the large number of meters in the urban area is after the slides that we just saw. Is that about right?
Correct.
So getting to those in late spring or summer of 27 and moving forward from there to get to that 250,000 number by the end of next year. So, okay, got it.
Okay. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you both. All right, products and service update.
All right, I'll invite Brian Adams forward. So tied into an additional set of things that we're bringing forward to customers, we wanted to approach the board and the public to create some awareness about new products and services and different ways we're thinking about them and bringing solutions to customers. So Brian.
Absolutely. Thank you. Good morning. Brian Adams, Director of Product Development and Marketing. As Tim mentioned, we've got 2 new products that have come out this quarter. First off, thanks to Britton Gable and Michael Troutman, we have 8 new home protection expansion products to offer. These are ways that our customers protect the electric and electronic activities within their homes. These are optional. And within the first couple of days of them being available, we had a number of folks sign up for them. And so we're happy to offer them because, as you know, electric things can be expensive. We've offered Electric Line Plus and Surge Guard in the past, and now we have a broader portfolio so that if you choose to
pay a regular monthly payment that can protect you from a large event down the road.
And very important to remind the public that we're offering these through Home Serve.
Correct.
It's a partnership. OPPD is not acting as the insurance company, so to speak, but there's a need and there's an interest, and we are acting as conduit to help ultimately our customer owners protect their equipment.
Absolutely. Thank you. In the spirit of time, I'll move on to the next slide. The other product to talk about today is the CNI new construction rebates. And so this launched in July. This is for commercial facilities between 5 and 30,000 square feet. As they are in the design phase, we incentivize the architect engineer to work with us to look at different ways to elevate their design above current building code. And we provide a small incentive upfront in that design phase. We then, if go in after construction, and if they in fact did implement those steps, there's a larger rebate paid at that time. This is a wonderful rebate opportunity, I think, for our medium-sized customers. These are buildings that OPPD will serve for the next 5 to 10 decades. And so anything that we can build in upfront that reduces their energy consumption helps both the customer from a billing perspective, as well as OPPD from a load that they need to serve. And so if we move to the next slide, happy to share that over the last 10 years or so, OPPD through energy efficiency programs has reduced total load by about 67 megawatts in aggregate. And so every time we set a new peak, as we did a few weeks ago, that is load that we don't have to serve. And so we don't have to build new generation to serve that, because we have provided incentives for energy efficiency to help reduce overall demand. So yes.
On this program, how are we evaluating the projected savings and delivered savings? Is this an in-house analysis by staff? We have an external partner helping us
A third-party partner named Wildan. They do this with Duke. They do this with Mid-American and others. And so they have a very robust process for evaluating and identifying savings.
Great. Next.
Is Wildan using NEO?
I would probably be grateful to try and answer that question. And so I will get back to you with that answer.
Brian, I think I missed this. The Express Energy Design Assistance was for a specific range of square footage for buildings?
Yes, 5 to 30,000 square feet is what we're starting with potential to expand.
Got it. Thank you.
All right. In the spirit of time, we'll move on. And Director Moody, to your question, Matt and Aaron talked about what is coming. I'm happy to report on some current uses of AMI meters that have been deployed. We are able to learn and understand how our programs impact our activities today. And so we'll talk about Cool Smart and Smart Thermostat, our demand response residential programs, as well as Flex Demand, which is our commercial and industrial program. So on this next slide, it is a little bit confusing. So the orange and purple lines are sort of normal days amongst our Cool Smart customers on the left and our Smart Thermostat customers on the right. Again, this is out of a population of about 8,700 or so. We've got 1,000 or so Cool Smart customers and about 430 Smart Thermostat customers. The blue line represents the expected load from those customers on July 27th, which was a very hot day where we, I believe, set a new peak. The blue line is what we expected. We called our Smart Thermostat and Cool Smart programs, and green is the actual line of what showed up in terms of load amongst those customers. So we can have a very specific, very clear measurement of how those programs impact our load. Now, that's even more important with SPP's pending rule changes regarding RR 703 and how they quantify and accredit demand response. And so this gives us incredible insight at the customer level, knowing, yes, these programs are working, they are responding, they are affecting our load in this way. And therefore, we can have great confidence that we are responding and we know exactly which customers are responding. And so very exciting data from our current AMI pilot. And so again, thank you for that investment in AMI. And we're excited to do a lot more of this in the future.
A couple of questions on the slides here. Numbers there, 1,000 devices, 400 devices. Is that the total number of devices in each of those programs? Or I think you hit it, but
within our pilot area.
Within the pilot area.
So
we
with
have
those
about-
devices and with AMI.
Okay. So this is AMI tracking the responsiveness of this respective programs through the.
Because generally speaking, we've been able to see in aggregate macro measurements of how these programs affect it. And now we have very good micro data.
Got it. And then the axis here, y-axis, that is cumulative kilowatts of demand over the number of participants in the pilot area. Is that about right?
I believe so. Yes. The bigger impact is the visual of the load shape, right? It's a nice snapshot.
Yep.
And the x-axis is noon
Yeah.
to 10 p.m.
That one I could track.
Okay, well, but it's small for our
Yeah.
listeners at
Oh,
home.
right. Digital Zoom helped on that one.
So 3 p.m. is when we initiated the call, really, is that?
Yes.
And then I guess the other question, I mean, are we seeing growth in specifically the smart thermostat program? Our, residential participation in that? Is every new home being built with a smart thermostat and getting enrolled with the program? Because it seems like it's effective, but.
It is trending up a little bit. We did run a promotion this year to try and increase smart thermostat adoption. So yes, we are seeing an increased growth.
Great, thanks.
Curiosity question, not from personal experience. Maybe it is. How much are you able now to see for those who are in the smart thermostat program, overriding it towards the end when they're cooking dinner and they're just kind of lost patience with it? And
yes.
Do you get a sense for how much attrition there is towards the end of the?
Yes. So in the past, it's been roughly 70% participation. We would get the aggregate data from each OEM.
Yeah.
This will give us, again, much better insight. And so it'll give us opportunities to rethink how we reimburse on or incentivize the program. Of you need to stay in for this much of it. And so there are different ways we can think about that. Yes, you can see on the right. I mean, yes, it does increase over the course of time. And so we're aware of that. And so we build that into how we understand the program.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. All right. Next slide talks about our commercial industrial flex demand program. And so again, on July 27th, we did call just short of 32 megawatts of demand response flex demand. And you can see that window that we called it for, prices spiked significantly throughout SPP. That is not all of our flex demand. We did keep some in reserve. But with those customers that we called, we saved during the very hottest and the highest parts of the day, which leads to the highest LMP prices. And so just that day, we saved just short of $100,000 of our customer dollars in terms of that load that did not have to be provided by OPPD. And so that's a really important product as well. That helps us, that lowers our peak demand, which then we don't have to put PRM on top of. And so these products are very helpful in terms of responding when our energy marketing team needs it. The next slide shows an aggregate of total demand response over the years. And I'll jump to the next and final slide to show where this stacks in terms of the size of our generators. And so we have right about 120 megawatts of demand response. And that is a very nice resource for OPPD.
It is a sizable amount that we can call on as needed. It is not, of course, an actual generator, and so we don't use it all that often, but when we really need it, it is a great product to have. So with that, I will.
Numbers, this is megawatts on this slide.
Yes.
Okay, last slide, there's 3 colors. That is megawatts broken down by different programs.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And then, here we go. So from 24, 25, 26, the megawatts are decreasing. That is changing accreditation from SPP in the program, or?
It is customers stepping away from the program, as well as change in coverage by some of our providers. And I'd be happy to go into more detail.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you. Mr. Fisher, please.
All right, yeah, Pete Fisher, Vice President General Counsel. We've got 2 claim settlements in excess of $50,000, which require reporting to the board today. The first of which is Hirschman Holdings LLC. This is back in April of this year. OPPD crews replaced overhead service wire. There was some investigation. There was a power surge that had occurred. Evidently, the wires had been installed incorrectly, unfortunately, which caused some damage to electronic equipment, HVAC unit, electrical panel. Hirschman Holdings claimed approximately $77,000 in total damages. District Holdings have agreed to a settlement of $75,000. Again, this item is presented today for reporting only in accordance with Nebraska statute. And then the second claim to report on involves University of Nebraska, Omaha. In November of 25, OPPD crews bored new primary and duct work at UNO. During that work, a water main was damaged and the issue did not become apparent, however, until March of this year. UNO ultimately claimed approximately $130,000 in repair costs. The district and UNO have agreed to a written settlement in the amount of $129,588.48. And as with the prior item, this settlement is presented today strictly as a reporting matter under state law. All right, thank you.
Thanks. Mr. Underwood.
Yeah, first up, we have a programmatic report on our quarterly financials. And so welcome Laura Langford, our Director of Accounting and Corporate Controller. Generally speaking, Laura will profile strong earnings, stable cash position, and look forward to hearing more from you.
Good morning, everybody. All right, like Brad said, you're going to see as you look at these charts, we did have some strong financial performance year to date. And so we're hoping to continue that trend through the rest of the year. So we're going to go into a few of the details here. I'm going to start in the upper left with our retail revenue. And you can see here that year to date, we're over budget about $54 million. That's primarily driven by strong industrial customer usage. We're experiencing more than we had planned for in the budget, and we do expect that trend to continue for the rest of the year. We're going to drop down one on the left to off-system revenue. And you can see here we are also over budget year to date, about $84 million. That's about double what we expected. Driver here, a lot of that is related to congestion hedging revenue. We've received more, I think we've talked about, it's kind of a historic year for that. There's been a lot of congestion on the system, and so we are being compensated for that. We also saw some higher market prices, and that was particularly during some of the winter storm events we saw early this year. And then we're going to move over to the right in the middle to fuel and purchase power. That rounds out our net power costs. You can see here we are over budget about $54 million. This is driven by higher purchase volumes than we had expected in the budget. And then also, again, those elevated market prices, particularly in the first quarter during the winter storm events. And then just around at the operating side of things, if we go to the upper right, we have our O&M expense excluding fuel and purchase power. Here we're over budget, just about $17 million year to date. This is driven by additional distribution expense as we were able to recognize expenses related to the project for the July 2024 storm that we had. We have been holding those costs in a regulatory asset. As you might remember, the board approved that. We have now had those projects obligated by FEMA. And so as a result, we're able to recognize that grant revenue and we offset that with those project expenses. And so they're nearly offsetting each other, even though it's reducing or it's giving us higher expenses. Speaking of that grant revenue, we drop down to the bottom, we have our other income and on the left there, and we are over budget here year to date, and that's by about $29 million. Most of that relates to that grant revenue for the project I just mentioned. Then we also did have higher renewable energy credit sales as well. And then lastly on this page on the bottom right, we have our other expenses. We're over budget here about $23 million, and that primarily relates to higher interest expense related to the debt we have that we're holding. Any questions on that before we go to the next page? Okay, you can go to the next page, Erin. All right, on the left-hand side, we have our operating income and our net income. You can see both of these are over budget year to date, pretty significantly through the end of June. Operating income, we were over budget about $70 million, and net income, we're over budget about almost $74 million. This is primarily driven just from those strong operating results, that higher retail revenue, positive net power costs, and then again, that offsetting with the grant revenue as well. And then on the right-hand side, we have our cash and capital. You can see there's a pretty significant variance at the end of the second quarter for cash. We were over budget about $500 million. This is just strictly a timing variance, though. We did issue bonds in June. Our budget originally had anticipated that in July. So you'll see that kind of true itself up as we get further into the third quarter. And then from a capital perspective, we are under budget year to date about almost $193 million. That is a timing variance. We're seeing timing delays on project execution, particularly with our new generation. When we look at the long-term project schedules, though, we are still on track for meeting those. These are just timing delays within the budget. And then lastly, to kind of pull that all together with our SD impact in the bottom left, when we look at SD2 with rates, we do remain well below that regional average at 14.1% below. That's based on the most recent EIA information that we have, and that is based on the West North Central region. That was the board had approved that change, and so we're seeing that reflected here in the Q2 results. And then lastly on SD3, our access to credit markets, positive here as well. From a liquidity standpoint, we have 233 days of cash on hand. That puts us well above our minimum days of cash on hand we'd like to have. And then our debt service coverage at the end of Q2, we were at 2.51 times on our debt service coverage. That's a rolling 12-month calculation. We do expect that to be at 2.0 times at the end of the year. That, of course, is what our goal is. While we're higher, we expect that to go down. That's just based on the transactions that we have projected for the rest of the year and some transactions that we record just at the end of the year, but we do expect to be on track for that. So overall, we did have a so far year to date positive results. We're seeing some favorable variances that I mentioned, even though like with capital, we are continuing to trail a bit behind plan, but as I mentioned, we're still on track schedule wise overall with those projects. Any questions on any?
You mentioned additional revenue in the industrial category that includes large customers. Any general sense of what's leading to additional revenue there from our budget? Any top line description of how are we ahead of revenue in that category?
I'll make a couple comments, Brad, and then I'll turn it over to you. I would say we're seeing those large customers. I think a lot of times we think it's just data centers, but we're seeing overall larger customers showing up more. And part of that is how we're budgeting for that and what we anticipate. And they're producing faster than we thought they would be according to the budget.
Yeah, nothing to add.
Okay, thanks.
So does this relate to some previous months, maybe previous year, when we had expect customers to be using more energy and they didn't ramp up according to our expectations? So now everybody's kind of caught up, and now they're doing what we'd anticipate they did maybe last year or several months ago.
No, good.
I was gonna say that's correct. Yeah, last year we saw the inverse of that. We were expecting those industrial customers to ramp up faster, and they did not. We're seeing that happen this year.
I think the way we've had to look at this internally is you're actually looking at a 3 to 5 year project in many regards, both on our side, whether it's generation and transmission, or on the customer side. And the variances that show in the years tend to be kind of a part of that bigger picture of growth. And so I appreciate you bringing that up.
Board members, I'll just remind and encourage you, the full, more detailed report is available in Diligent in the Finance Committee's book for this month. So if you're interested in a deeper dive into any of this information, it's all there available.
All right, thank you.
And we'll continue the stewardship theme if that's okay. We'll go to another programmatic update relative to the performance of the retirement fund. Second quarter performance will come from John Petrulis, our manager of Treasury Debt Investments.
Morning, everybody. So the retirement plan had a successful quarter. Last quarter, the ending balance, we ended up at $1.5 billion, and that was up from $1.38 billion. So that was very good. Coming off of the first quarter was negative for the markets and that, so it was a nice recovery in the second quarter. During the quarter, benefit payments exceeded contributions by approximately $12 million, and investment gains were approximately $126 million. The asset allocations in the plan continue to be within the policy ranges. So the total plan had a net return of 9.1% for the quarter, and that exceeded the benchmark of 8.9%. So once again, very successful. Year to date, the plan has had a return of 7.6%, and that is below the 8.2% for the benchmark. But I'd like to point out that that is above our 6.5% discount rate. So we want to make sure and meet our discount rate of 6.5%, and we are exceeding that for the first 6 months of the year. For the quarter, domestic equities returned 14.1%, and there was larger participation in the stock market for gains than just tech stocks, so that was a positive. Large caps continue to, small caps actually beat large caps, but growth continues to outperform value. The international returns were very strong for the quarter at 17.6%, and the emerging markets portion of international stocks was the best performer in that particular sector. Domestic fixed income returned 0.8% for the quarter, and international fixed income returned 5.6%. So that's very strong for the international fixed income. Real estate for the quarter returned 1.4%, and the commercial real estate market continues to get better. It's not great, but it does continue to get better. So with that, I would open it up for any questions.
Hey, John, just a little clarification. I think I know the answer, but I'm not really sure. When we look at, say, the quarterly return, we're not looking second quarter this year to last year. We're looking at the previous quarter. Is that correct?
Yeah, exactly. So the balance from the end of the first quarter through to the end of the second quarter that's the quarterly return. So
okay, thank you.
Yep. And then the year-to-date return. So it was less because we had I think it was a negative 1.3% return for the first quarter of this year.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, we're on to confirmation of the board meeting agenda. So we just have one item on our consent action items. Does anybody want that fold to discussion action items? No? Okay. Anything else before we move on forward?
Yes, I wonder if we could put on the Thursday agenda, add an item for board response to public comment. We've had, June was pretty hot. And as I recall that meeting and I recall some of the statements made, there just appears to be a great lack of information or misinformation about some things that have happened in this past year. And I'd just like an opportunity to correct the record and do some teaching about some topics. So I don't know how that works with the governance Robert's rules of order, but have that as a board discussion action item.
And our policies allow any board member to add any item, right?
Yeah.
We'd want that under the discussion action item. It's just a matter, Director Spurgeon, of how you'd want to title it, I suppose.
And we could work offline
Yeah.
for that, and then we would circulate the agenda unless you wanted to do that here, but.
Okay.
we could certainly come up with
I
an appropriate title.
want to address a couple of things, and one is the the organization with the initials EPRI and how that has been characterized by the public, which I think is incorrect. And it's a misunderstanding that contributes to the misunderstanding of what we're about, I think. And the other is the term of gaslighting, which we've been accused of. So I want to explore that a little bit and see exactly what that means. Are we doing that? I just think an opportunity to bring another perspective to that would be helpful for our public. Whether they will listen or not is up to them, and whether it will change their mind or not is up to them. But I think there is a perspective here that OPPD just does whatever it wants, and we can tell SPP what to do, and we have no responsibility really. And to our customer owners. And I just want to correct that. I think it would be useful. I think it's part of the board's job to protect this entity from scurrilous, defaming, which is not accurate. So that's my reason for asking for this.
Sure, that's great. So how about Ms. Lane as a placeholder on discussion action items, and then you and Mr. Foch work together to title that?
Sure.
Does that sound all right?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So
It will be published
Tomorrow, 24 hours in advance of so it'll be finalized by roughly 4 o'clock tomorrow.
yes,
So we're anticipating a board discussion item that is specific to board response to public comment. It would not be a presentation, it would just be, because I'm not sure exactly what the logistics.
Well, it would be a
will happen.
presentation by me.
Oh, okay,
It would be a teaching piece by me, essentially.
great.
I guess to that point, though, we vote on discussion action items, so
Yeah.
I just don't know the place to put it in. The
other
agenda.
items.
So it'd be
Yeah.
like number 8 or.
Right,
So,
and I mean, I apologize. I think we can work through this fairly easily and make sure that it becomes an agenda compliant. And we can continue to work it here, but I think we can get to a good solution by 4 o'clock tomorrow.
Yeah.
How to best address it.
No, thank you, and I should have called this from the get-go, so I'm sorry as well, so. That, everybody good with that? Okay.
So other items, not an action item.
Right.
That was the primary point of clarification. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Any other board members have anything to say about our confirmation of board meeting agenda before we move on? Okay, and then I don't see anyone in the room, but before we adjourn, we'll take comments from the public on items of district business. I just want to make sure there's not anybody in the room to make comments. Okay, great. Then, for WebEx attendees, if you wish to make a comment, please send the meeting host a message using the chat feature or utilize the hand raise feature. Detailed instructions can be found on the OPPD website at the link shown on the screen. When I call on a member of the public to speak, please affirm that we can hear you before commencing with your comments. Please state your name, address, and the name of any organization or person you represent. Each individual will be allotted 3 minutes per matter pending. To assist you, we'll use the timer on the screen and signal you when 30 seconds remain, as well as when the time is up. If you have written materials, please email them to corporatesecretary@oppd.com and they'll be received on our behalf. Please direct your comments to me. I'll either respond to you directly or defer response to another board member or officer of the district. The board values and welcomes civil, respectful, clear, and concise communication from the public. During public comments, speakers should refrain from repetitious, profane, or irrelevant comments. Speakers shall refrain from polling the board as such vote is not on the agenda and prohibited by law. If any members of the public joining via WebEx have comments on district business, please send a chat to the meeting host or use the hand raise feature in WebEx. Telephone users can press *3 to raise their hand.
David Corbin.
Go ahead, please, if you can hear us.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, sir. Go ahead, please.
David Corbin, 1002 North 49th Street, Omaha, representing the Nebraska Sierra Club. First of all, I want to point out that we appreciate that Nebraska has public power, but since we only have 3 minutes, I have to emphasize concerns and observations. The first one is about the closed session, which was entitled Strategic Risk Capacity and Project Execution. It's kind of perceived as a kind of doublespeak. So was this legal issues, was it proprietary or what? I think the public needs to know why that was a closed session. Also, I heard that there's now been an approval, and I don't know whether it's true or not, that OPPD can double the use of the originally announced energy from natural gas plants. Regarding Resolution 6744, I'm glad that Director Moody is meeting with the Douglas County Health Department. I'm hoping that it's not just Director Moody, but that there are officials from OPPD that are also involved in this. And then I'll just mention one ironic thing that my power went out at my house, and so I'm reading things on my phone, and what comes up but a LinkedIn message from CEO Fernandez, taking pride in reliability, received text message reliability, and I realized that you didn't want it any more than I did, but I thought it was kind of ironic. But I do want to point out that I received, when I reported it via your app, I received several text messages, and several of the text messages said that my power was restored when it was not. I'm glad to see all the new solar developments. When you were talking about Fort Calhoun, I don't think it's too early to start planning the site. It seems to me like storage would be a good opportunity, and I don't know if you've looked at flywheel and iron air options, but a lot of others are using that. And finally, I've said it before many times, and so I'm going to mention it again. If you can work with Home Serve for the programs that you highlighted today, why can't you partner with someone else who can help you with on-bill financing? Thank you.
If I may, I think,
Yes, go ahead.
for clarification, I think this is important, a sensitive topic. On the closed session, just gonna look at general counsel. There was discussion about customers, very specific customers and projects that was the reason for the closed session. This is a topic that I plan, and I think we talked to the board about bringing up, and it's gonna be part of how are we meeting the demand that's coming up in front of us. It's very linked to the ISP, the load that we're planning, and how are we meeting that growing demand. But I want to clarify that the need for this for the closed session was because we were discussing specific proprietary information about specific customers and projects that are forming this load. Anything I missed?
That's correct. Yeah, closed session was necessary because the discussion involved competitively sensitive customer information.
Thank you.
And let me just clarify the comment, and I should have caught this earlier when Director Williams gave his Systems Management Nuclear Oversight Chairs report. I have not been meeting directly with Douglas County Health Department. That's been handed off to staff. I nudged some of that forward a couple months ago, but that's been handed off to Cliff and his team.
Yeah.
So
We're actively engaged with, speaking with them as well as other members of the team here at OPPD with Douglas County.
Yeah, on a regular basis.
On a regular basis, I meet roughly every 2 months with the doctor in charge, and then we've got other staff members that meet.
All right, great. Thank you for the comments and for all the Ms. Lane, are there any other comments?
Cheryl Weston.
Ms. Weston, go ahead if you can hear me.
Okay, I can hear you.
You can hear me now.
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead, please.
Okay. Cheryl Weston, 1822 Emmett Street, Omaha, Nebraska. And I enjoyed, I know you'll probably laugh at that, but I did enjoy listening to the meeting today. I did have two questions and I was attempting to put them in the chat, but the chat is turned off so that they're kind of a little lengthy, but I'll just read my questions. How much of OPPD's projected generation and transmission expansion is attributed to data centers? Oops, I lost it. Sorry. Data centers are other large load customers, and what binding protections ensure those customers, not residential taxpayers, pay the full resulting cost? The second question, will the new capacity plan accelerate or delay the transition of North Omaha Station away from coal, and what enforceable dates, emission reductions, and community health commitments will OPPD make public? So I know I had to say that pretty quite fast to get in, and I would be glad to put them in the chat, but the chat is turned off.
Thank you. I think we got those recorded and go ahead.
That was recorded. I think that the first question will address that, and we'll talk about the capacity expansion on transmission and generation. To your point, Ms. Weston, very, very important to remind the public of the resolution that was approved by the board in December that specifically directed OPPD to include the transition and retirement of North Omaha Station as an input into the integrated systems plan. So regardless of what the integrated system plan says, that is not going to dictate the timeline of the transition of North Omaha Station, but rather that is a condition that exists as we are going into the expansion. I hope that clarifies that.
Thank you, and thank you for the comments, Ms. Lane.
No more comments.
All right, without any other comments, thank you everybody for today, and we are adjourned at 12:08.